So one of the things I wanted to get done on the P16 on the off season was replacing this piece of wood trim. So this is where I mount my main sheet swivel cam right there, one of the blocks, the horn cleat that holds the centerboard down, and then you can see there's sets of mounting screws. There's 4 sets of mounting screws that just mount that to the centerboard trunk. So this sits on top of the centerboard trunk, and you can see that it just hasn't weathered very well. I think it was only stained. And so it's very cracked, and it looked really good when I bought the boat, but you know, I've only had the boat for a year, and so it's really not looking so good. The backside did not have any treatment at all. So yeah, not looking too great. And you know, honestly, after doing my cubbies with HDPE, I really like the HDPE material. And so I've decided that I really don't want to be varnishing this thing all the time. So I'm going to replace it with a piece of starboard that I ordered from Tap Plastics. And I had it custom cut. So the board itself was only like 20 bucks, but the custom cut and then the shipping total with tax was 70 bucks. So I do need to sand off so it has really sharp edges. The way they cut this. So I'm gonna sand that off. This feels more like, you know, like a bar of soap. So I'm gonna smooth out those edges. So my plan here is first sand this board, then I'm gonna fill all the existing holes with epoxy. The sides of the centerboard trunk are only about 1/4 inch thick. So really these holes, they're probably too close to the edge. So I might change some of those. I don't know, I gotta think about that. All right, so I just got done with my Dremel tool, and so that was all about getting the loose, like the flakes and the little bits, you know, that had cracks, like drilling out the little hairline cracks, and then just getting to good material on each and every one of these little holes. So when I did the disassembly, one of the things that I noticed was that so there's 16 screws. Most of them were these. These are 2-inch, I believe. And so this is about 1 inch thick, and then the trim that goes on top is 1/2 inch. So, you know, 1.5 inches total, and you got a 2-inch screw here. So you got, you know, 1/2 inch of screw sticking out below into the centerboard trunk. And then some of the screws were even bigger. So this is the 2-inch, and then you have this even bigger one, 2.5 inch. And so, you know, a ton of this screw, when you stuck it through the trim, was going down into the centerboard trunk. And so I've replaced all 16 of the screws with these much smaller 1.5 inch. So that'll go through the trim and then just about all the way through the centerboard trunk, the fiberglass, and won't protrude out the bottom. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was check for damage on the centerboard itself to see if it had been hit by the tips of any of these screws. Okay, so this is the whole centerboard removed from the P16. It's pretty big. It's it's a sizable centerboard. So it's just laying underneath the boat right now. But you can see here where 2 of those screws, sure enough, came through the trailing edge of the centerboard. So I'm gonna have to epoxy those holes as well, just to protect the core inside. So, you know, just one more little thing to do. No big deal though. Okay, so I put a coat of polish, and you can see where I fixed those 2 holes, put some epoxy in those 2 drill holes that were there, and then I went ahead and replaced the centerboard line. I've got my holes drilled and cleaned out. I've wiped them down with acetone, and I also I have masking tape. You can see some of it behind the holes to back them so that the epoxy, when I put it in there, it doesn't flow out. So that's why I had to remove the centerboard. And then I also have these, so this is little bits of plastic bag that I just cut up, you know, like a Ziploc bag. And so that's for each one of the holes. I have it in 3 places where there's damage that goes into the side. And so what happens when you put the epoxy there is, you know, of course, gravity, it starts flowing down. And so what I'll do is when I put the epoxy, once I apply it, I'll just fold that over and basically create a form to hold the epoxy in. For this repair, I'm using JB Marine Weld, and this is white in color. I've never used the white before. I've always used the gray or the clear. And I also purchased separately the static mixers. So these just attach to the end of the syringe, and it mixes it as it goes down the tube. So it does all the mixing as it goes down the tube. So what's in the tube will last a little longer, even though you still have to use it pretty quick. And then you can cut the tube to the size you need, the little nozzle at the bottom. And so, you know, this way I don't have to mix it and then transfer it to I used to use livestock syringes. So I don't have to transfer it to the livestock syringe, which eats up a lot of the cure time because, you know, you're doing it a little bit at a time into the syringe, trying to load the syringe. So this should be a lot faster. Now all the holes are filled, and some look better than others, but all the excess will get sanded down, so that's not a problem. It takes 1 hour for the stuff to cure, 5 minutes to set, and 1 hour to cure. I found the best way to drill into HDPE is to step up from small drill bits and then, you know, make a pilot hole and then gradually step up in size until you get to the final size that you want. Because if you start out with like a big drill bit, it'll heat up the material too much, and it'll basically, unless you have like a drill press, if you're using a hand drill like I am, then, you know, the material become really soft, and you'll end up with, you know, molten stuff that comes up along the sides and edges. And so this is just a much cleaner way to do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my saw, and again, I have a hand saw. I don't have any kind of like bench saw, but I'm going to get my saw and then drill the sides and then go down the length. Okay, so got my cut done. Very happy with that result. Overall, I mean, so the plastic, the HDPE, it doesn't sand as easily as I thought it would. You know, the finish of it doesn't look super refined. You know, you can see here where it just looks kind of scuffed up where I sanded. So, you know, it's not perfect. It's not like this beautiful polished surface, but I'm pretty happy with it so far. This is all cured, and so now I just need to do some sanding. It doesn't need to be perfect because that trim is going to be laying over it, so nobody's going to see it. So where I put the plastic, it did really well. It's nice and curved, so it didn't flow at all. So sanding is done. Now I'm going to drill some holes and just see how things fit. Okay, well, excuse the mess. I'm working on 2 boats simultaneously here, but Just wanted to show you what I did to get the centerboard out. So I've got some big cedar posts underneath the boat, underneath the transom, with some cardboard just to cushion a little bit. And then I've got a strap across the bow. And then another strap to the frame of the trailer. And then of course, you know, the trailer winch. And then of course I am very fortunate to have an anchor point on the bottom of my garage for the trailer tongue. So I've got the trailer tongue anchored. I've got two straps. You know, the blue one's a little loose, but you know, it's just to catch the boat and prevent from squishing me while I'm under there. And then the red one attached to the bow eye. And then, you know, of course with the posts, I mean, I'm pretty safe just with the posts. That's enough space for me to be under there without getting squished. But yeah, you know, I'm pretty cautious when it comes to working underneath 300-pound objects. Okay, so this line comes down from the opening for the centerboard line. So I'm going to use this to guide it. Okay, so I got the handle in the centerboard trunk slot. So to do that, you have to basically, you know, get it tilted just the right angle and have just enough space to get it in here. And so I'm using this roll of bunk carpet to kind of just slide the centerboard on now that it's in here. Just clearing the handle is the hardest part. So now that it's in here, it's not too bad. So the further along you get it, the more space there is. Okay. Okay, so I got the boat fully on the trailer again. You can see the centerboard. It's not attached to the boat yet because I couldn't get onto the boat until the boat was pulled up all the way back onto the trailer, because it's not safe, and it's, you know, it'll crack the hull having all that weight. So now that it's fully on the bunks, resting on the bunks and on the trailer, I can board the boat and then go ahead and mount the centerboard. Okay, so here's the trim all installed. And I think it turned out pretty good. The polish did leave some white marks on the edges, but yeah, you know, it's going to be basically zero maintenance and a lot better than what I had, the wood trim. So I'm pretty happy with it. All right, well, as always, hope this is helpful, and thanks for watching.